Welcome, dear listeners. I am Grimwick, your guide through a world of imagined secrets and half-remembered tales. The stories you are about to hear spring from my imagination, though at times they may brush against real souls and fragments of history. Each diary holds 50 entries, revealed one by one, like pages turning in candlelight. Miss not a single chapter, and keep close to the little bell that calls whenever a new entry awakens. And if you whisper in the comments whose diary you long to uncover, well, perhaps that very volume already rests in the shadows of my collection. So then, my companions, let us begin.
Sunny Brooklyn, winter 1918 to 19. A baby's cry is the only siren. A man runs toward instead of away from. Every other sound in this world, police whistles, fire bells, women screaming, sends you looking for the nearest exit or the closest weapon. But a baby's cry pulls you like gravity, like conscience, like something stronger than fear and more urgent than self-preservation. Sunny came into this world on December 4th, red-faced and mad as hell, tiny fists clutching the air like he meant to collect rent on every breath he took. The Dr. Rafferty, an Irishman with steady hands and a voice like whiskey poured over gravel, placed him in my arms like he was handing me the deed to everything I'd ever wanted and everything I'd ever been afraid to lose. His hand wrapped around my finger, this impossibly small thing with perfect tiny nails and skin soft as prayer. And just like that, the city noise fell behind a door I didn't know existed. The trolley bells, the dock whistles, the arguments bleeding through thin apartment walls, all of it went quiet, like someone had thrown a switch in my head. There was only breath, his breath, light as whispers. May's breath, deep with exhaustion and relief. My own breath, caught somewhere between my chest and my throat, like a sob I couldn't swallow. And the tiny weight of something that didn't owe me nothing, and didn't fear me neither. Something pure, in a world that had been teaching me about dirt since I was old enough to walk. I wasn't built for church words, never had the patience for sermons or the temperament for hymns. But I said a few words anyway that night, standing by the window while May slept and Sunny made the small sounds babies make when they're learning how to be human. Not out loud. The neighbors didn't need to hear me talking to God like we were old friends having a private conversation. In the chest, where promises weigh more than gold and last longer than grudges. I'll keep your belly full, boy. Won't matter if I got to work 3 jobs or 30. You'll never know what it feels like to go to bed hungry. I'll keep your mother laughing. She's got music in her, and I'll make sure the world don't steal it. I'll make this city call you Sir before you're old enough to shave. Make sure respect comes natural as breathing. Make sure nobody ever looks at you like you're less than what you are. Promises are heavier when you carry them inside, when they become part of your bones instead of just words you said when the moment felt big enough to require them. They change how you walk, how you think, how you count money and measure time. Johnny Torrio stood godfather at the christening saint. Bartholomew's on Christmas Eve, snow falling like confetti outside stained glass windows that turned winter light into something holy. A quiet nod when Father Murphy asked if he accepted the responsibility. A hand on my shoulder that felt like an anchor in water that was moving too fast. Johnny never made a sermon out of loyalty. He made a habit out of it, something practiced and reliable as morning coffee or evening prayers. Some men bring cigars to a christening, flowers for the new mother, toys the baby won't understand for months. Johnny brought something different, something you couldn't wrap in paper or tie with ribbon. Johnny brought a future. "The boy's gonna need advantages," he said afterward, over coffee and cake in May's mother's parlor. Snow still falling outside windows that framed the street like pictures of a world trying to stay clean. Education, opportunities, protection from the kind of troubles that follow families like ours. He didn't spell it out. Johnny never spelled anything out when a nod would do. But I understood. Sonny would grow up in a different world than the one that had shaped me. Would have choices I'd never been offered, doors that would open for him instead of closing. Whatever it took to build that world, Johnny was offering to help build it. But there's a shame I don't throw on anybody else's table. A weight I carry alone because sharing it wouldn't make it lighter. Just spread the darkness to people who don't deserve it. A man who keeps books keeps this one too, filed away in a ledger that never balances, never comes out even, no matter how many times you run the numbers. Doctors have a way of making words sound like unpaid bills, sentences that start with, "I'm afraid," and end with numbers that might as well be written in blood. Dr. Phillips, the specialist May's sister recommended, the one who charged more for an examination than most men made in a month, sat us down in his office like he was delivering a verdict instead of a diagnosis. "Your son has some challenges," he said, choosing his words careful as a man walking on ice. "Development will be different, slower. He'll need special attention, special care, special everything." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire you can't put out. May's hand found mine across the space between our chairs, her fingers cold as winter rain. Sonny slept in her other arm, peaceful as Sunday morning, unaware that the adults were discussing a future he'd have to live, but couldn't choose. We did what we could. We learned what we had to. How to read the signs, how to help when help was needed, how to be patient when patience felt impossible. You don't get to choose the kind of burden you carry, only how steady you carry it, how straight you keep your back, how much love you pour into the carrying. That knowledge rearranges a man like furniture in a room you thought you knew, tells him what money is really for, what it means when you have it, and what it costs when you don't. Not gowns that make women feel beautiful, or cars that make men feel important, or rooms with views that make anybody feel like they're above the world looking down. Money is for medicine that might help, and doctors who might care, and the kind of quiet that comes when you know you've done everything possible, bought every chance, tried every door. Money is for hope when hope becomes something you have to purchase instead of something you just feel. May had a way of turning my rough edges smooth just by walking into a room, like sandpaper made of grace and good humor. Her laughter could put a towel over the city's eyes, make Brooklyn forget it was hard and dirty and unforgiving. When she smiled, the apartment felt bigger, the future felt brighter. The problems felt like puzzles that could be solved instead of walls that couldn't be moved. At night, when Sonny finally slept and May hummed while she mended clothes by lamplight, I'd trace the day's numbers in my head like beads on a rosary. Wages from the bowling alley and whatever odd jobs I could find. Rent for the apartment that was too small but all we could afford. Food that filled bellies without emptying wallets. Doctor bills that came regular as seasons and cost more than everything else combined. The ledger always came up a little short,
no matter how careful I was with the arithmetic, no matter how many corners we cut, or luxuries we forgot we'd ever wanted. Love doesn't change mathematics. It just makes the math worth solving. Gives meaning to numbers that might otherwise just be figures on paper. I tried straight. God knows I tried. Baltimore offered an opportunity that looked clean as Sunday morning. A legitimate company, Peterson Brothers Accounting, that needed a man who understood numbers and didn't mind sitting on tall stools for 10 hours while other people's money passed through his hands like water through fingers. It felt good, honest work, like shoes that actually fit after years of wearing boots that pinched. A steady paycheck that came every Friday without fail. A boss, Mr. Peterson the Elder, who could count past 10 without taking off his shoes and treated his employees like human beings instead of machinery that happened to eat lunch.
I liked the rhythm of it. Columns of figures that added up the same way every time. Problems that had solutions you could find in books. A world where honesty was rewarded instead of punished. I liked going home with clean hands and a clear conscience. Liked telling May about my day without having to edit the stories or change the subject when she asked too many questions. But trouble can follow a man without knocking. Can find you even when you're trying to live right and walk straight. The telegram came on a Tuesday morning in March, yellow paper that felt heavy as lead in my hands. 10 words that changed everything. Gabrielle Capone passed peacefully this morning. Stop. Come home. Stop. My father. Gone like a light going out in a hallway. And all at once I was the one who had to pay for the burned-out bulb. The funeral. The debts he'd left behind. Not much, but more than nothing. The family that looked to me now as the eldest son. The one who was supposed to have answers when questions got hard. I took the train back to Brooklyn, watched Baltimore disappear behind me like a dream I'd been having about a different life. The legitimate job, the steady paycheck, the clean hands, all of it suddenly feeling like childhood, like something I'd outgrown without realizing it was happening. Pop's funeral was held at St. Bartholomew's, the same church where Sonny had been christened, where I'd made promises I was still learning how to keep. The priest said words about eternal rest and heavenly peace, but all I could think about was earthly bills and temporal hunger, how much the casket cost, how much the family needed, how little a good man's life was worth when measured in dollars and cents. Funny thing about the world, it will scold you for getting rich the easy way and laugh at you for staying poor the hard way. The same people who looked down on men who broke laws to feed their families would cross the street to avoid men who kept laws but couldn't afford decent clothes. Morality, I was learning, was a luxury poor men couldn't afford and rich men didn't need. I stood at my father's grave, rain falling like tears the sky couldn't hold back, and did arithmetic in my head. What the family owed, what they needed, what my Baltimore salary could provide versus what it couldn't. The numbers didn't lie, even when I wanted them to. I told myself I wasn't choosing crooked over straight. I was choosing possible over impossible. Choosing a future where Sonny would have what he needed when he needed it. Where May could laugh without counting pennies. Where the family name meant something more than good intentions and empty pockets. For Sonny, who deserved every advantage money could buy and love could provide. For May, for the long quiet meals we hadn't earned yet, the peaceful evenings we couldn't afford, the kind of security that let you sleep without listening for footsteps on the stairs. The decision, when it came, didn't feel like deciding. It felt like gravity, like water finding the lowest point. like truth finally admitting what it had always known. Johnny Torrio had been patient, had let me try the straight life, had waited while I learned what I needed to learn about the distance between good intentions and practical results. When I finally called him, he didn't say, "I told you so." He just said, "Chicago's waiting, kid. When can you be here?" The day I left for Chicago, the street smelled like rain and hot bread from Manzetti's bakery, like coffee and coal smoke and all the familiar odors of a neighborhood that had shaped me into the man I was becoming. I kissed May goodbye, tasting salt from tears she was trying not to shed. I put my palm against Sonny's tiny back, feeling his heartbeat like a drum keeping time with promises I'd made and meant to keep. "I'll send for you both soon as I can," I told May. Words that sounded like hope and felt like lies. "Soon as things are settled, soon as it's safe." She nodded like she believed me, like wives do when their husbands need them to believe in futures that might not exist. But her eyes knew what my words couldn't say, that I was leaving for a city that ate men alive, that chewed up good intentions and spit out bones, that took boys from Brooklyn and turned them into something their mothers wouldn't recognize. I promised my son a kind of safety that cities don't sell in stores, that can't be bought with honest money or honest work. The kind of safety that comes from being feared instead of loved, respected instead of liked, powerful enough that nobody dares to threaten what's yours. Then I went to buy it, however I had to, whatever it cost, whatever it made me become. The train pulled away from Penn Station with a sound like the world, carrying me toward a future I could see coming like weather on the horizon. Dark clouds that might bring rain or might bring storms, but would definitely bring change. I pressed my face against the window and watched Brooklyn disappear, taking with it the last of whatever innocence I had left to lose.
I trust you enjoyed this glimpse into a most curious diary. If so, leave behind a small token of your delight with a like, and do consider joining our circle by subscribing. And remember, ring the little bell, and you shall be the very first to know when another diary or a fresh entry emerges from the shadows. And if a whisper stirs in your mind, a thought, a riddle, perhaps a name of someone whose secrets you would dare to uncover, leave it for me below. I read them one by one. And who knows, your wish may guide my hand to the very next diary I choose from my collection.